It's been a long wait for these Mark 5 coaches from Accurascale, but the general consensus has been that it's better to get them right rather than rushing things. Now that we've had a chance to look them over and run them on our layouts, are they what we expected? It's time to take a closer look. Hi, thanks for joining today's review. We'll kick off with the usual unboxing and our close-up views. We'll then take a look at the model on the track in both pull and push modes and discuss any challenges there. After that, I want to spend a little dedicated time on the lighting before we get into the usual summary, scoring and final recommendation. Okay, let's get underway. Okay, let's get into the unboxing for this fantastic TransPennine Express set from Accurascale 5-car set. Very large box. Was delivered in an even much larger box, which you could have probably fitted about 4 or 5 of these in. Let's take it out. It comes in this, as I say, very nice presentation box. We've got the coach configuration there. You can see it, and we'll get into that now as we look through the model. So this is a very nice presentation, I must say, for this. And here we've got the set. So we've got a wand to control the lighting on and off. I'll talk a little bit about that later on. I kind of have maybe slightly different preferences on the lighting control, but I'm sure some people probably don't have any problem with the wand, but I probably would like to have DCC control, but that's another day's discussion. Let's just take all of this out of the box so we can see what's underneath. Very often you can miss these pieces. So we got a little bit of a history, and we've got a kit with some couplers. Looks like an air dam kind of thing at the front there, so it's pretty small. So I think most of the detail is going to be on the set itself, which is fine. So we've got this nice history of the Caledonian Sleeper and the TransPennine Express, and this very spectacular and very nice livery that we see. Talks about fitting a DCC decoder. Okay, so that's good. So we'll take a look at that and how to remove the model with the clips. A detailed blowout, which is always of use for each of the cars, and then some general information at the end, and it just talks about the activating the lighting with the wand. So we'll see that when we get it on the track. I like the protective film to protect the livery, and then we see what is a spectacular looking model. I love this livery, obviously, and we'll be running it behind a Class 68 in the same livery. But it's very nice to see this model in detail here. Okay, now I think I can kind of see what one of those items is probably for. It's probably their destination boards. Okay, there we go. So there's they leave a blank for you there, so you can fit in your own destination board onto the car. So that's fine. So that's fine. So we'll do the full usual close-ups on all of these, of course. But needless to say, the level of detail is absolutely spectacular. It'll be interesting to see these little guys in action now that there's magnetic couplers at the back here. Love the bulkhead there, the detail around the door, really crisp, all of the labelling. The handrails are moulded, and the handles, etc. That's fine. I can live with that. That's not a problem. But the overall detail is spectacular, and some really nice underbody detail here. Again, we'll see that in the close-up view. And these really interesting bogies with the kind of spring effect inside. You can kind of see it there. And there's a lot of nice little detail here on the underbody. Again, some fantastic labelling. So overall, this looks really, really good. Looks like a really nice model. Spectacular. Sprung buffers at the front. So this would be your driving trailer, and underneath nice levels of detail underneath as well. even the little fans, which you won't see much of because they're right under the body, but called out very nicely there. It's not excessively heavy, and I don't think I'd want it to be excessively heavy because if you're going to operate this in either a push-pull mode, you want this to be free running and you don't want it to be too heavy. Now, so the Hornby driving trailers aren't that free running, which, as I say, I'll talk about that in another review I've coming up. But hopefully this is free running, because it does kind of need to be if you're going to be operating in that mode. And I'm sure there's pickups there. I can see pickups on both sides and pickups there as well, which is good, which is fine to power the lighting. It will be interesting to see the lighting as well. I can see the LEDs inside there. And they look to be positioned across the cab, so we'll see what they look like when we put this all together. So very nice looking and really top-notch quality. So let's take the next one out. We'll just look at these two, and then we'll get into the close-up views afterwards. Again, we've got the vacant destination boards. We can add our own, which is a nice effect. I think that's probably. I'm sure people would change them anyway if they didn't suit what they wanted. But again, a nice follow-through of the livery. So again, excellent levels of detail. I really like this detail here. It looks really good. That's really nice. You can see through the grille there, and you can see through it underneath as well. There's the fans. So that's nice. Nice seating area with tables inside. Yeah, you can certainly add passengers in there. There's no room for their legs by the looks of things, but that's fine. You wouldn't see them anyway. So this is car B, so let's just take this guy out, because this would have been the second car, and it probably would answer my question. So, okay, so all the cars are actually connected with the magnetic couplers, as we would have expected, and this guy is what's going to connect to your locomotive, and the other telltale part of that is you can see the bulkhead here. This is the locomotive side, so and that's nice. Again, nice to have that nice unique detail there. Separately fitted kind of cabling there, ducting. So that's nice. So all the cars will be connected using the magnetic couplers. So it looks out of the box. Everything I guess I expected it would be. Pretty spectacular looking model. These are very, very nice, high quality coaches. Like, these are easily a good step on from your typical Mark III, Mark IV coach you might get from Hornby. They're kind of at the quality level. They're more detailed than, say, the DCC coaches from Bachmann, the Mark II coaches, if you're familiar with those, that do have lighting. And they're very nice coaches, and they're very top quality, and they're very nice runners as well. But this even looks another level on from those. Really nice clear glazing there. Overall, top-notch model, and really looking forward to getting these onto the track and just seeing how they perform. Again, there's pickups on all of them, so there probably will be a little bit of resistance, but hopefully otherwise, because there is contacts in there, but otherwise hopefully they'll be free running and perform well. So, magnificent set of 5 coaches, and should look equally magnificent behind Class 68 in the same livery from Dapol, and we look forward to putting that together. So let's get into the close-up views, and then we'll move on with this review. All right, let's get into the close-up views. So we'll start with the driving trailer, and we'll run along the body as usual here. And really, a few things here. Is excellent livery here. There's a lot of detail both on the upper body, lower body. Nice detail in the cab area there as well. I've fixed one of the destination boards there. You can see that, and there's 2 options for that. Again, you see some fantastic labeling all across the model here, and the text is also very, very clear. And those bogies look really nice, quite a nice, unique look to them. Overall, a great level of detail, and a nice kind of gangway area at the end there, just above the magnetic coupler. So next up, we're going to look at one of the coaches. And again, we're seeing the Same level of detail here, same level of nice livery and labelling and lettering. And really, overall, these coaches are excellent coaches. They're a cut above the normal coach if you're typically used to something like a Hornby Mark III, Mark IV coaches as being, more contemporary coaches. These are definitely a step ahead of those. And I think that's what makes them quite a unique release. It's really giving us a very high quality coach set here in a modern day livery. So here now we're getting the 360 views, just so you can get a look at right around the model, front and back as well, and also look at the roof. Now, I haven't actually done separate shots of the underbody, but there's nice levels of detail in the underbody. It's actually very good. You see the front of the driving trailer there, with the detail on the front buffer area, the buffer beam area. The handrails at the side there are actually, they're not separately fitted, they're just molded, but they still look very good. The nice door areas called out there. You can see the gangway areas at the end there with those magnetic couplers underneath them. And again, the very nice underbody detail and the nice levels of cab detail. And again, you've got the destination boards and the car numbers there showing. And these are the three main cars that sit in the middle. Again, see the good levels of detail across the board, giving you an overall nice looking finish. So the build quality in these I found was very good. I have no real issues to call out. If people have seen issues, then please let us know. But I certainly didn't see anything in this pack out of the box. And actually, just the car number E there I've actually included, so you can see the bulkhead at the end of car E, which is different from all the others, and that's also got a different coupler. And there's probably a discussion to be had around that coupler, but we'll get into that one as part of the running session. So very nice looking from a visual perspective. So now we're getting into the running session itself. So we've got our ubiquitous Dapol Class 68 leading us out here in the TPE livery, and we've got that car number E there, and they go in descending order from here. So you'll be running through the different cars down to car number A, which is the driving trailer at the very end. So the first comment to make we're in pull mode obviously here. Absolutely no issues in pull mode whatsoever. You can always be a little bit of concern that those magnetic couplers might come loose, for example, where there's a strain on them. But these are medium to low resistance cars on the track, and really I didn't get any detachment from the magnetic couplers at all in the course of the running session. So from a pull mode, really no concerns at all. The maximum speed I could get this up to was 85 miles an hour scale speed, and that limitation is down to the Dapol Class 68, which can't achieve its prototypical scale speed of 100. But no problems at that maximum speed, so no calls for concern at all, no decoupling of the magnetic couplers or anything like that. And it is only a 5-car rig, so you wouldn't expect to see that, and certainly when you've only got medium to low resistance cars. So an excellent runner in pull mode, and really absolutely no concerns at all. And I did run this over radius 2 as well, radius 2 curves, and again, no problems in pull mode. And really the discussion really is around the push mode. I think that's where we need to talk a little bit. And I think that we're going to stop here now and actually turn around and get into push mode after this. So flawless performance. And in general, it is a flawless performance. And even when we get into push mode, the issue isn't actually the cars themselves. The issue is the coupler between that car and the locomotive. The tension lock you get out of the box just doesn't work. It'll cause derailment on radius 2 and radius 3. I'm not sure on radius 4. I didn't get to test it there. So it just isn't a runner. And tension lock couplers in push mode aren't a runner anyway. So you're going to need something else. You're going to need a hunt coupler. You're going to need a drawbar type coupler. And it's got to be a minimum length as well, because on the curves you can get an overhang of the buffers, and if that happens you'll get derailment. I went and pulled out the drawbar coupler I had with my IPA wagons. I used the long version of that, and that's what I'm using here, which is why there's kind of a gap between the locomotive and that car. But that didn't give me any problems throughout the running session. So once I put that on, I got no derailments, push or pull mode. So for push mode, I always take a little bit of care, and I do tend to run at lower speed, but I could have probably run at higher speeds. Okay, so next up, I want to talk about the lighting. Probably doesn't come out in the running session that much, and I guess that's part of the problem, in that the lighting isn't very visible, and in ambient light you really wouldn't know that the lights are actually on. They default to the on state, which I do like, which means you don't have to take up the wand to turn them on. You'd have to take the wand to turn them off, obviously, if you didn't want them the coach lighting on. But I don't think it'd be a problem for you because it's so dim. This, I guess, is my issue. I've got a picture here of just ambient light and the coach lights are on. You really can't tell that from looking at the car here. That's kind of one of my problems. The second issue is the lack of uniformity. So here now we're using a long exposure here so that it'll kind of highlight things a bit better, a bit easier to see. But if you look at the seating areas there, if you look at the ones that are bright, you can see the bright seats, and then you can see them interspersed with darker seats where there's no light, basically, or there's a reduced level of light. And that's all down to the number of LEDs that have been provisioned on the top PCB, which we have here. So here now you can see that there's only 4 LEDs, and that's where you're getting this extremely patchy lighting. I'm baffled by this. I am absolutely baffled by how anybody could think that that was sufficient lighting. And one look at the car with the lights on and turning down the lights in the room, for example, so that you could actually see it, would tell you straight away that there was a problem. So I'm really surprised at your Accurascale for releasing something like this. It's a huge disappointment to me because I was looking forward to having decent coach lighting in these. There's a huge stay alive capacitor there, and these things stay alive for minutes. You take this coach off the track and the lights will be on like 5 minutes later. It's gross overkill. I'm kind of suspecting maybe they engineered for a greater number of LEDs, and somewhere along the way there was a cost reduction and they were taken out. But for the sake of like 20 extra LEDs, 4 per car, they could have avoided this issue and had a decent level of lighting in these cars. So this is one part about this model I do not like. Now the next area I want to talk about is the lighting to control the end car, the driving trailer. First of all, there's nothing to tell you what kind of DCC decoder you're going to need. You're going to need a 4-channel decoder because there's 3 functions that need to be controlled here. So that's the first thing. If you put in a 2-channel, you'll find you won't be able to control everything, and I know some people have had problems with that. I'm going to run through it here, so we'll take a look through what F1 or F0 does for us, and F0 turns on the basic directional lighting. F1 will then turn on the destination board, only the front-facing destination board, and F2 then turns on these extra spotlights. So those are the 3 functions, and when you install, you can control those. On DC, you won't have that granularity of control, but the lighting will follow the direction of travel, so you get that control in that way. Now, the issue with the directional lighting is this issue that they will flicker. There's no backup. They're not connected to the stay alive capacitor. The stay alive is only servicing the coach lighting, so there's no stay alive with the DCC decoder and hence the lighting of that decoder. And it does flicker, and it flickers all over the place. Now, I went back through this section of track and cleaned it, freshly cleaned with the track rubber and solvent, and cleaned that track as good as I could, and yet you still see it there, and it's not even on a point that the lights flicker like that. So I'm going to do a comparison here between the lighting on my Hornby Class 800, which I wasn't too impressed with the coach lighting on this particular model. If you've ever seen my review, this was one of the areas I was not pleased in. But it does have directional lighting as well, which is again controlled by a DCC decoder. So let's step through this for a minute and just do a rough comparison. So first let's look at the coach lighting. The intensity. So it's dim on the Accurascale model, and it's dim because there's too few LEDs, and it's also uneven. On the Hornby Class 800, it's just dim all over. It's just pretty evenly dim, and it's poor. And I wasn't happy with it in that review. The control is via the wand, obviously, and it defaults to on. I do like that. On the Hornby, there's no control for the coach lighting. It's always on. That's fine. I can live with that. And its stability is good on both. And that's obviously you've got a stay alive circuit on the Accurascale Mk5s, and you must have something similar, I assume, on the Class 800. Now, the directional lighting. Intensity is fine. The red marker lights are a little bit dim. They're slightly smaller, but that's kind of like the way they are on the prototype as well. Control, either on DC via the direction or DCC through the controls we just went through. Now the issue here is that flickering. If I look at the Class 800 from Hornby, for example, its trailer, its rear car, the lighting is steady. I never saw flickering on that particular car. Let's look at the DCC decoder access. So this is referenced in the documentation, and it kind of says be careful because you might damage some detail, etc., because you've got to take the body off. On the Class 800 from Hornby, there's a little compartment underneath, one screw, and it's off, and you can put the DCC decoder in there. So that's a very easy way. And Accurascale have done that on other locomotives. They provided a very nice access for DCC. This one, you got to take the whole body off. I know some people had to go and glue parts back on because they came off in the process of doing that. So again, that's just not great. Destination board illumination, it's only on the front driving trailer. And it's only on the front of the driving trailer as well. It's not even the side destination boards. And if you actually look, and I've put a video in the description, I've put a link to a video, and there's a section of that video which actually shows one of these trains in real life leaving a station. And you'll see the lighting. You'll see the destination boards, you'll see the coach lighting, you'll see the intensity of the coach lighting and the uniformity of it. And you'll see how much the destination boards actually stand out. They're a part of the look of the actual prototype and should be part of the model as well, but they're not illuminated. Obviously in the Class 800 they're not illuminated either. It's not on that particular model. Last point to put here was light bleed. Thankfully we don't have any, which was a huge problem on the Azuma model. I didn't really want to have to do this sort of comparison. I thought if I did a comparison like this before this review, the Mk5 coaches would be way ahead of the Hornby Class 800, but they're not. They're kind of on a par, and they're even behind in terms of the directional lighting because of the flickering aspect. I am somebody who actually does like to run the lighting on the models, and for me this is a letdown. I know that's not the same for everybody, and for some people just don't care, and that's fine. But for me this was an important point. It's an important point for the Mark IIb coaches and the Mark IIc coaches that are coming up from Accurascale. And I'm really worried now that these are going to have this second-rate lighting with a sparse array of LEDs, giving this uneven, dim lighting effect. If that's what the coach lighting on the Mark IIbs and IIcs is, I'm not certainly going to be pleased about that, because that's significantly worse than a Bachmann, for example, the Bachmann DCC coaches. I know they're expensive, but they include a DCC decoder, and you've got the control that gives you, and you can also change the intensity of the actual light. But the quality of the LED light in those, the quality of the coach lighting in those models is excellent. And so even if you don't have DCC control for your lighting, even if it's controlled with a wand, there's still no excuse for the dim lighting and the patchy lighting on these particular coaches. So what are fantastic coaches are let down by, I don't know, what was it cost cutting or oversight or whatever. But I had to do a separate section on this. Extremely frustrated by it. You know, it is a letdown on these particular coaches. Okay, let's move on with the review, get into our summary. Okay, so let's get into our summary. So these coaches are available in two different packs, 5-car packs, including the driving trailer, with different running numbers for each pack. So you could use both packs on your layout, and they would have different running numbers for all the coaches in the two packs. The running resistance on these I'm categorizing as medium to low. Given the running performance of these, I think it's spot on, given their power pickup on these particular cars. The magnetic couplers between the cars I think works very well, and you've got an M pocket and tension lock coupler then to the locomotive. That doesn't work well, and I think there is a gap here that there wasn't an appropriate coupler included in the set. We always knew there was going to be a requirement if you wanted to run in push mode for a different coupler than a tension lock, so I think that's actually a gap. It wasn't in the box from day one. There are sprung buffers at either end. There's no buffers at all between the coaches, so it's just at either end, and they're sprung. The destination boards, there's two location options for these, and they're provided as kind of separate detailing. You need to fit them yourself. Directional lighting works under DC or DCC control, and that's only on the driving trailer. And you do need a 4-channel decoder to control the three functions as we went through. The coach lighting is controlled using a wand with stay alive capacitors in each car, and that does default to on, which is good. The top scale speed I tested at for pull mode was 85 miles per hour, and that was limited by the locomotive, as I mentioned in the running session. And I only ran to 50 miles per hour in push mode, and I generally tend to be more conservative in push mode across the board. I think because of the particular configuration now with the magnetic couplers between these cars, I think you could certainly run this thing probably up to the 85 miles an hour speed with a suitable drawbar type coupler or a suitable hunt coupler between the locomotive and the first car. That's the main thing you need to get right. Unboxed weight across the cars is pretty uniform, 163 to 164 grams, which is a pretty good compromise between weight. You need a certain level of weight, and you need that to get some good pickups for your power, versus not being too heavy if you're going to run in push mode. And I think that kind of weight is fine. Selling price for either car is, for the 5 car sets, is the same for each of them, £225. Recommended retail price, and that's the price we all paid because that's what you had to buy these direct from Accurascale. So whether future sets are for that same price, which is a very good price, remains to be seen. So let's get into the scoring. It's a weighted scoring as always. I have adjusted the scoring for this year. I'll be using a slightly different scoring scheme. I've kind of split out the build quality all on its own, and I've brought back in the aspect of documentation because it is more an important issue on some of the larger, more expensive sets and locomotives to have decent documentation. It does become more important. Documentation would be a measurement of what's out of the box versus as well as what's available from from the website for the model and easily accessible. So let's go through it. The running performance, as I said in the running session, is a 10 out of 10. The derailment was all down to not having the correct coupler. Once I had the correct coupler, I didn't have any problems. Some people have complained in the comments that they had some issues with back-to-back settings. So I'm putting that against the quality score. Like there's been a couple of little niggly things like that. And so I'm putting that against quality. If everything is set up correctly, these coaches run immaculately, and both in pull mode and push mode. And they're probably the best coaches in push mode that you can get because of that magnetic coupler setup. And here's the detail. I'm docking a score here for the lighting because I think lighting is an intrinsic part of a modern day model, and if it isn't fully up to scratch, it's part of the detail and appearance of the model basically. And I am actually taking the point off for that here because of the lighting issues on this particular model that just could have been a bit better. So I won't go into that anymore. And also, when you get into the kind of extras, obviously the lighting is part of the extras, so there's deficiencies in it. And there's also, I think the missing coupler, not having the coupler out of the box is a gap. It certainly should have been there to help people. And it's just the ability to add the decoder, the DC decoder, is not that easy. I put in a driver into this thing, but there's so little room for the driver to fit. When you're putting the cover back on, he got knocked off again. So even that doesn't work really good. So they're small items, but they could have made a big difference. And I really would have liked to have the illumination destination boards at the side, but then when you didn't have enough lighting, you were never going to have that. So those two kind of played off against each other, that you were just going to miss out on both sides. Build quality, as I said, is overall very good. I didn't have any problems with pieces falling off, etc. I know people, when they had to take the cover off, they did have some pieces coming off if you weren't that careful. And my only comment on this particular area is that could have been mitigated a little bit. The one thing when I was taking the cover off myself was actually trying to find the seam between the cover and the base, and just a couple of little indentations to allow you to see where that is would have really helped. And I think could have mitigated against people maybe having pieces coming off when they were trying to remove the cover. So a little bit in the design might have helped in that particular area. But overall, the build quality is excellent. And in general, I didn't have any problems. There was no loose pieces in the boxes or anything. These models look good. The paint job is excellent. The glazing was excellent. So overall, it's a very good score. Packaging and documentation. I think the packaging is absolutely fine. I think the main issue here is some of the documentation gaps around the settings to control the lighting, and a bit more regarding the coupler. There's no real help for you. So you're kind of left to your own devices, sorting out a suitable coupler to use for push mode operation. And again, if that had been in the box, that would have helped. So a few things there, I think that, they were just probably missing, and it would have been good. And also on the destination boards, just some guidance in terms of applying those. It would have been no harm. There's just really no mention of them. That's kind of the thing in the documentation. So just a few gaps there. The price value is a 10 out of 10 because at the price point of 225, these are really competitive, and I don't think we'll probably ever see that price again because it's an extremely good price. And I guess it's a 2-year-old price. 10 out of 10 on value. I don't think anybody can have any complaint given the quality of these. You can't buy 5 Mark IV coaches, for example, at the recommended retail price for that from Hornby. They're nowhere near these coaches. So that's a very competitive price, I think, for the pack, and great to get it at that price. So overall, this is a really high scoring set, 9.2 for the overall, and then just excluding price value, it's a 9.0. This is the upper echelons of coach scoring. I don't think I have too many coaches that have ever scored like this. I did like the lighted backman coaches, but they wouldn't have had a good value score against them because they were quite pricey. This is at the upper end, and if there's another coach this year that scores higher, I would be pleasantly surprised. I'd say this is probably the highest score we're going to get off a coach set this year. Okay, so let's get to my final recommendation. Given their well-executed appearance and their excellent running performances, I do believe these Mark V coaches from Accurascale represent a significant milestone release for 00 gauge models in the UK. The nice packaging, the excellent build quality and the very competitive pricing all contribute to a very attractive offering for modern image modelers. I realise many modelers don't care too much about the lighting, but I do believe it's an integral part of modern image passenger models in particular that warrants the same level of attention as a piece of underbody detail, for example. So did these coaches live up to all of my expectations? Well, I guess the honest answer is no, but they did live up to most of them, and the excellent running performance and appearance would be more than enough to satisfy a large proportion of the modeler base. Performance could have been an area of concern. These are nice free-running coaches connected via excellent magnetic couplers that combine excellent performance with a very nice aesthetic. So despite my own misgivings on the lighting front, and to a lesser extent on the documentation and coupler gaps, these coaches come highly recommended for all modern image modelers and a definite must-own for anybody who has got a Class 68 TPE. So what has your experience been with these models? And do you share my frustrations with the lighting? Or do you have any other areas of concern that I haven't brought up in this particular review? Please let me know your own thoughts on this review in the comments. Have I been too hard on Accurascale on the lighting issues given the cost of these particular models? Please let me know, as I say, in the comments. So thanks for watching today. I'll hopefully see you on the next one, and in the meantime, happy modelling.